My name's Adam, and I'm an addict. I suppose, yeah, I used to think that this being an addict meant that I was addicted to drugs, and that was it. I was addicted to alcohol and drugs, and I thought that's what made me an addict, you know. And it's only since I've been in recovery that I've learned that it's so much more, you know. And it stems back such a long way, you know. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story, you know. When I was younger, where I really think my addiction started, you know, I realised that that I was a little bit different, as in my sexuality sort of thing, when I was very young, and it gave me great fear, you know. Anyone finding out about this, I was scared to death of it, you know. And as I started to get a little bit older, into high school, and I started to look at the other guys very differently, you know, and it scared me to death. And so the first thing I remember doing, which took me away from that feeling, was music. I'd play something on my headphones, and if that song made me cry, I'd play it over and over again, because it was still better than how I should have been feeling at that time in my life. And yeah, and I did that for many years, or anything that took me away from how I should have been feeling at the time, you know, until I found alcohol and drugs in my early teens, you know. The alcohol was the first thing I picked up and the last thing I put down. And yeah, so the alcohol and drugs was the same as anything else. I used it until it stopped working, and I moved on to something else. And people were another thing in my, because I had this massive secret of mine. I'd have a particular friend at some time or another, and the friend had become an obsession, and I had to be with them to feel better about myself, you know. When they weren't there, I'd be sitting there wondering what they were doing, why weren't they with me, feeling sorry for myself, which in turn I'd use drink and drugs just to sit there and make myself feel better, you know. I can remember being that scared of my sexuality that I painted this picture, and a picture of how a mental picture of how horrific my life would be if anyone found out this secret about me. And I thought I was going to lose all my friends, lose my family, lose my job, you know, and no one would want me around. I thought I was going to be put in the corner of society, and people spit at me and throwing stones if they found out this secret, you know. So I kept it in for many, many years, till I was in my mid-20s, you know. And in the meantime, through drink and drugs and holding this secret in, everything I painted in that picture happened, you know. Started to lose jobs, I was unreliable, I was a mess. Eventually I became homeless. Yeah, and then and bit by bit, one by one, my family had to shut the door on me, you know. And I think that was one of my many rock bottoms, you know. I had many failed suicide attempts, and I always had sort of I always had one good thought to go to sleep on at night time, you know, whether it be one of my friends I was obsessing over, or my job. And eventually my family was the only one of the lights that I had switched on to go to sleep on at night time. And then my family's one by one had to shut the door on me because they couldn't watch me do it to myself anymore, you know. And I've got a small but close family, which I've always been really close to. So for so for them to have to close the door on me was my very rock bottom, you know. And yeah, and after my last suicide attempt, I walked in through the doors of the BAC, the Burn Addiction Centre, and you know, from that day, my life turned around, flipped upside down, you know. When I got in there, I could barely speak. I had a terrible stutter, which I've still got a little bit now, but nothing compared to when I walked in them doors. I could barely even say my own name. And then I had a therapist there called Kev, and I remember in my first one-to-one, he sat me down and he said to tell him my story from the beginning, as far back as I can remember. And I remember sitting there for the whole hour, and I didn't stop speaking. I told him the person I'd been, the things I'd done, and I told him my secret, and I told him the person I wanted to be. And I didn't stop for the whole hour. And when I looked up at him, he was smiling, and I thought, what are you smiling at? I've just told you some dark shit, you know, and you're smiling at me, and he looked at me and said, because you just spoke to me for the whole hour. Without stuttering, you know. The truth has set you free, he said. And from that moment, you know, when I speak, I'm not trying to think how I'm going to manipulate somebody. I'm not thinking about all this shit I done yesterday because it doesn't matter anymore. I'm not thinking about who I'm speaking to keep my secret anymore. You know, I haven't got to do that anymore. And yeah, it's so. And they introduced me to the fellowships also in the BAC, as well as doing a lot of work around myself and my behaviours. They introduced me to the fellowships, which I'm still with now. You know, every day I'm working on myself. You know, and if someone told me 16 months ago that it's all about speaking honestly about how you're feeling at the time you're feeling it, you know, and your life will be so much easier, I'd have said, it's off or something like that, you know. But it's absolutely true. Going to the meetings, speaking to my peers, speaking to all the people in addiction, is keeping me clean. And it turns out that the only person who had a problem with me was me, you know. No one cares. And I thought the whole world was thinking about and talking about me and what I'm doing, you know. And yeah, it was only me with the problem, you know. And so yeah, today I'm just over 16 months clean, and my life has turned around immensely. You know, I've got my mum back in my life, you know. This is a lady that's always been there, you know. And when I sit back and think, you know, I went into rehab with so many resentments, and my mum was one of them for some reason, because, you know, it's all I remember doing was giving me earache, giving me, you know, and it's all through love, you know. When I sit back and think about it now, you know, my brothers and sisters, they're all back in my life, you know. I'm down there almost every weekend. We're in contact every day. We tell each other we love each other after every phone call. And my nieces and nephews, they've getting emotional now. Yeah, they've always been a massive part of my life. And obviously that stopped, you know. I wasn't allowed anywhere near because they weren't allowed to see me like that. And now I'm back to the uncle that can take them out on the weekend. I can afford birthday presents and Christmas presents, which I've never done for years, you know. And I've also got a new nephew. I think he's he's 9 months old now, George, and he's only ever seen me clean and sober, you know, and his little eyes, and I'm allowed to hold him. I'm left on my own with him, you know, which is something that this would have never happened. I mean, he's lucky to see me alive, you know. My life was, yeah, I think I was weeks off death when I walked into the BAC, and now I can't tell you how grateful I am, and I was told, with empathy and gratitude, you'll go a long way, you know. And I'm grateful. You know, I'm grateful for all the little things that have always been there that I chose not to see. You know, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the family I've got. I just chose not to see it before. You know, I'm grateful for a roof over my head. I'm grateful for food. I'm grateful for every day that I'm still here now. You know, it's absolutely unreal. And the empathy's changed my life as well, because I look at everybody differently. You know, I certainly don't judge people anymore. You know, if someone walks past me in the street and doesn't say good morning to me, I used to think he was a bit of a dickhead or miserable. And now I think to myself, what's going on for you? Are you okay? You know, obviously I can't go around hugging everyone, but I'd like to. You know, I think, yeah, everyone needs to talk to each other more about how they're feeling, and not do other people's thinking for them, thinking that they think this about me, they think that about me, you know, because everyone's just getting on with their own life the best they can, you know, and that's where I'm at today. You know, my life is, compared to 16 months ago, my life is absolutely wonderful. You know, they said they told me in rehab you'd have a life beyond your wildest dreams, and I didn't think a life beyond my wildest dreams would be this simple, but it is. I've got everything I could ever need, you know, and any more, it'd be too much, you know. So yeah, that's me. That's where I'm at today, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
That's perfect.